3 weeks before, we made a social media post that was like it was trying to like hype up the event. And it was like a world record, one goal. And the goal was 650 miles. And so I had this reckoning afterwards that was like, oh man, we like Babe Ruth that. Like I like pointed over the fence and then delivered on that.
Welcome to BrainStoke. I'm Tom Telford here with Matthew Lefthand. First off, a couple shout outs to our sponsors. First, Levo, a mind care company. Thank you, Levo. Mental health professionals who are providing primary mental health care, assess, diagnose, and treatment of various mental health conditions. We also want to thank Bolt, Adam Barker, and his incredible men's shaving razor and other products. Thank you, Matthew, who likely, I don't know, we're going to talk about, your use of Bolt today. We'll see. We'll see.
I actually haven't tried it yet.
Trying to collaborate the two of you together. We'll see. But yeah. Adam Barker's Bolt products are amazing. Also, brand new to our sponsorship, lineup this year is Cornerstone Advisors, Gardner Brown. It's our sponsor from Cornerstone Advisors is a 20-plus time finisher of Lodija. So the guy has been doing it for, incredibly long time. In the endurance world, that's just an hors d'oeuvre, but, Lodija is a legit race. So Gardner Brown and Cornerstone Advisors, thank you for your support of BrainStoke. Also, Envy, the best carbon fiber on the planet, in our opinion. Envy's been an amazing supporter for those folks there. The MOG is our go-to get dirty bike for the year. So thank you, Envy, and your bikes. Anyone else that we should spawn or throw out there? I don't think so, but this is a special recording because the reason that we brought Matthew in studio is that Matthew's an ambassador of BrainStoke, and he also just knocked down some incredible world records. And so today is all about the records, plural.
Yes.
If you don't mind, maybe give a run up, Matthew, of just what was the objective going into, this big day and what was all on your radar screen to accomplish? And tell us a little bit about the preparation.
Well, I think it started out as this, and then it grew into this. It was like, I think I can do this world record. And then as we got into it, we're like, how do we, capitalize on this, or how do we get the most out of it, or benefit people, or not just make it about me, but also bring people together and demonstrate it. And to do it, we had to record it anyway. And so we're like, well, let's live stream it then, because if we're going to have video stuff set up anyway, then let's do that. Oh, we're part of BrainStoke. Like, let's have a podcast during it. And if we're going to have a podcast, like, let's bring people on and ask them questions and chat during it. And so it's just like things piled on after one another. But the main goal was that I spent a lot of time on Zwift, and I'm familiar with the platform and familiar with what it would take to go really far in that 24 hours. And after doing some in my head number crunching, I was like, I think I could probably break the current records and even push it out pretty far. So that's where it started out. And I happened to Zwift with Peter Bradbury, and he's on a couple of our dirt rides. And so I started chatting with him about it. And it was interesting to listen back to the podcast and hear his side of that equation, where he was just like, yeah, well, I get a lot of inquiries, so we'll see where this goes. But then after a few weeks of going through it and him checking out my data and figuring out, we could actually do something here, he got into it. And that was really cool to get someone at Zwift excited about it. And they're like, yeah, let's if you're going to do this, let's make it a thing and bring all the camps together. So it started out as that, and then it just piled on.
Which is the lefty way, by the way. When something starts like, hey, let's do this thing, it tends to just blow up. Like, we're learning quickly
piece at a time.
That the lefty way is like, hey, if we could do this, like, let's do it bigger, broader. It was anyway. So was the original record that you reference, when you say
Yeah.
the record was capable, was the record a Guinness World Record?
Yeah, so it'd be good to break down. I'll just give it kind of broad and try and keep it as least complicated as I
Yeah,
can.
totally.
Because when we looked into it, we wanted to know what is the 24-hour record. We found that there was actually a couple different virtual 24-hour records. Like there's one that's just on any sort of bike whatsoever. Like it's the stationary, when you get on the gym and there's those stationary bikes and you start pedaling and it just tells you your speed and whatever.
Yeah.
And you can go like 40 miles an hour on those bikes and do like 100 miles super fast. Like, so there is a record where someone's done like 1,000 something miles in 24 hours. And so we're like, well, that's not going to happen. So then we found this other 24-hour record that was actually taking place in Zwift, and it was 592 miles. And okay, that's a lot more manageable and capable, and I think I can accomplish that. And then because Peter was involved, we had him just curiously look up, what about other 24-hour rides? Because getting it certified is another step beyond just doing it. I was just curious, what is the furthest that someone has gone that's most likely a legitimate ride? Of course, like they didn't do all the calibrating and videoing and extra steps and everything. So we had the Guinness record in mind, and then he found the longest ride that we then found out data about it. Once we had that information, we did some searching and figured out who did that ride and asked around and everything. So there was a Guinness record on the line. There was the longest Zwift record on the line. And then at the same time, I'm associated with the World Ultra Cycling Association, which holds all of like most of the ultra cycling records. And so I reached out to them because I found out that when you do an ultra cycling record with Guinness, you're technically supposed to be sent to them, and then they handle the record officializing, and then they send it back to Guinness and get it taken care of. But that didn't happen in this situation. So I reached out and was curious as to why that was. And it's because this record is a standalone using a virtual program where WUKA doesn't have any virtual records done yet. So the reason that I can say that it's 14 world records is because it's 12 whole brand new world records. So I was the first one to do it and to set the bar on a lot of those. And so I worked with them on that. So it's WUKA records, a Guinness record, 2 for the 12 and 24 hours. And then there was this kind of carrot dangling way out there that was the longest Zwift ride because it was considerably further than the Guinness record as well.
Wow. So much there, that was going on during the day. Before we dive into maybe just some of the key things that went on in order to prepare to do it, were you thinking through, the run up that if I did one thing, like, did you try to compartmentalize, like, if I just do this one, a lot of the others will fall in place?
Kind of very much the opposite. Like, I've realized in these ultra races, at least this is everyone's different, I'm sure, but my experience is that it's easy to talk yourself out of it if you accomplish something cool. So in Sebring, when I did an outdoor 24 hours, my mind started playing tricks with me that was like, if you could just get to this mileage, that will be enough. Like that it was my first ever outdoor 24 hours. Most people dream of going over 500 miles. So I just thought, just get to 500 miles. And that's awesome. Like a handful of people in the world have done that. You're good to go. And so, but then I had to battle past that and just say like, yeah, but I'm going to have hours left on the board and I'm not going to be happy with the fact that I stopped if I could have kept going. And so I had to go through all this battle to try and get myself to go further. And then it was like, well, just get to the point where second place can't catch you, because there was someone who was several laps behind me. And if I stopped at some point, I think I couldn't stop until the last like 2 or 3 hours, or else he would have had the opportunity to catch up to me and pass me. So eventually it was like, okay, we'll get to the point where he can't catch you. Get to the point where there's not enough time for him to make a big surge and catch you, and then you can be done. And then I was like, but still, like, I wouldn't have gotten everything out of myself. So kind of with that in mind, when I started the world record day, I put in my mind 24 hours of pedaling. Like, you can't, none of the rest of this matters. You have all these other records you're going to go for. You're going to break halfway through a world record, a couple world records that are already set. And yeah, you could count that as a success. And you're going to get to a point where if you keep up the pace, that you're going to pass the current record and still have hours left on the board. So none of that matters. We're not going to break that down or anything. You are pedaling until 24 hours. You're going to fuel for that. You're going to put your eye on it, and you're just going to put your head down and go there. There's no stopping until that point, which worked out pretty well. I kept going the whole time.
It's incredible. I mean, it for being there, for watching kind of the run up and the preparation, and then being there, it was surreal. When you thought about the day itself and getting ready for the day itself, did pressure begin? I mean, because there was now, right? It wasn't just you showing up quietly doing it in the garage. I mean, there was a lot of expectations on the line, you know, to, I don't know if deliver's the right word, but to
perform. Yeah.
Perform.
Yeah. Yes, do what you said you were going to do. I had this, I'll go forward and then go back. I had this moment a few days afterwards. If you look on Zwift, the ride was 650.0 miles. And I, at the time, wasn't 100% sure that I was going to make it to 650. There was a time where I thought that was off the table. And then we pushed really hard the last little while and got there. And that's significant because 3 weeks before, we made a social media post that was like it was trying to like hype up the event. And it was like a world record, one goal. And the goal was 650 miles. And so I had this reckoning afterwards that was like, oh man, we like Babe Ruth that. Like I like pointed over the fence and then delivered on that. And it was bizarre because just coming out of it was like huge amount of pressure. It was way more than I expected, especially because like you said, all of these have been done, like the Zwift stuff's all in my house, just chilling out. It's all there. I have my own setup. I'm comfortable. I'm not around people the whole day. So I didn't think too much about the pressure leading into it, but pretty much the day before when we were setting up, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a lot. Like
This is a public thing.
This is a public thing. I've said I'm going to do this thing. Like, what if I automatically, my head started to go into, what if I get 3 hours in and it's not on? Like, what am I going to do at that point? Like how I'm going to like get off the bike and walk away? Like, how do I face all these people and that type of stuff? But knowing how the mind plays tricks on you, and once again, knowing if you feed that, then that's what becomes bigger.
Yeah.
I shut that down entirely and was like, you've done the training, you've done the work, you're feeling good, you're healthy, you've been feeling, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's in front of people, doesn't matter if it was on its own. We're there, we're good to go. You just focus on you. There's this storm of like preparation happening around me with stuff getting set up and troubleshooting internet problems and figuring out stream stuff. And I'm just like breathing slowly and like, it's going to be fine. Like your job is to pedal. You've done all the other work. and I did a lot of work to get it going and making connections and setting it all up and everything. It was pretty much a me and Bailey show. And then we recruited a lot of people to help out, including you guys with it. And I was like, your work is done. Like there's nothing, the only thing you can do at this point is ruin it. And that's one of my mantras for events is the only thing you can do is get in your own way. And you need to step out of your own way and do what you're prepared for.
Which is amazing. And I want to just give some context to listeners because when we talk about virtual cycling, there's a perception unless you've done it. You don't necessarily understand the technology or how Zwift works or all that stuff. But you know, for the ignorant person, you may think virtual cycling, you get on a bike and you pedal air and it's like a game and it's just kind of fun, right? So will you give some context to how does a bicycle that you're spinning on in a physical world, how does it actually equate in a virtual world in terms of, is it hard? Are you pushing a hard gear? Does it feel like you're going uphill? Does it simulate wind or air? Or like give some context to what virtual cycling is and, you know, how it's comparable.
Yeah, cycling's an interesting sport because it's really, you can really simulate it online in a way because the way that you train as a cyclist is how much energy or power you're putting into a bicycle. So whether you're outside or inside, the idea of the day is that you're measuring exactly how much torque or power you're putting into your pedals, and that defines your training. And it just so happens that that's really easy to say, oh, well, we can put that into a game format and then you can figure out how your dynamics would be in a game just based off of that power number. So there's a couple different ways that can happen. You can put your road bike, your actual road bike, on a trainer, and it's got a cassette and gears, and you can shift just like you are outside. But that trainer provides an electronic resistance with a flywheel to simulate what's going on inside the game, or to do whatever it tells you to do, whatever you tell it to do. So in Zwift, if you're on a hill, it will actually provide more resistance as if you are climbing that hill, and you can then shift your gears just like you would outdoors, and your gearing will change how much how much your pedaling has to change to meet that resistance. And it's pretty accurate. I mean, you go in there and you climb up 10%, and you shift just like you would 10% outdoors. And there are some trainers that you can do it two ways. There's a built-in specific kicker bike that actually has a module that will lift you up and down. And so as you're in the game, not only does the resistance change, it also starts to edge you up. So you're like, I think it can stimulate like 15 or 18% or something like that. So it goes up quite a bit, and it's like you're climbing that. And you can take your actual road bike and take off the front wheel and connect it to a kicker climb, and it will do the exact same thing. It'll actually, your road bike that you go and climb the mountains with, you're actually climbing virtually, and then you're a little avatar on the screen climbing this mountain in a pack of other people and stuff. So not only are you doing it like alone and it's like feels like it's kind of real, there's other people around you. Someone could be in England, someone could be, across the street from you, but they're on this road with you, climbing, racing, training together.
Yeah. It's actually incredible.
Yeah.
Like even now,
wild.
even the day of, and interviewing a lot of friends and acquaintances you have, I have to admit it's pretty unique world of watching a game. It feels like a game. It feels like you're playing Nintendo or something, from my childhood. But it's you in the game, and it's wild. I mean, when I ride, I don't know why this is the case. Maybe it's like the time of day I typically ride on Zwift, but I'm always out there with a bunch of Germans and people from Japan. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that there's an online community of people who are riding bikes together all over the planet.
Yep.
And it does simulate hard. Like I have to admit, like riding Zwift to me is harder than outside.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I want you to
say.
I want you to speak to that. But when I'm outside, I come to stop signs. I coast.
Yep.
I whatever. And on Zwift, it's almost like every pedal stroke is your pedal stroke.
Yep.
So speak to that, if you don't mind, before we get to the meat of the dialogue, which is the day. But just effort of online versus outside.
Yeah, two main thoughts. Well, and before that, I kind of have the opposite experience with the two worlds because I spend most of my training time now on Zwift. It's so convenient. The bike maintenance is less with how many miles that I put on the equipment. And then, mainly just the convenience of I have a family and a job and everything. And so I can save 10, 20, 30 minutes not getting equipment ready or what I can just hop right on. So then when I go outdoors, I get bothered by the street lights, the stoplights, and I get like if I go on a group ride and everyone wants to stop for a few minutes, I'm like ticked off most of the time. I'm like let's go, because I'm used to just like pedaling the whole time, constant, always going. You can do these events on Zwift, but even then I don't get off. I switch between events and just keep on going. It's like it's a never stopping type of thing. So I think, you nailed it with the constant pressure. People aren't used to that. People are used to coasting down the hills, or taking a break for a second, or you have all the stop signs and getting and going, and the watts that you can do are different when you do them just minute after minute, second after second. And so if you're not used to that, it changes quite a bit of what's going on for you.
It totally does. I mean, I have to admit, a 2-hour Zwift ride for me has an entirely different experience on my chamois and my chamois cream.
Yep.
My rear end of never being off the gas, pedaling every stroke, is, I mean, it's a fitness that's just different.
Yeah, the bang for the buck is incredible. I think the storm of things that make it possible for me to do these ultra events, Zwift is one of those, or online cycling is certainly one of those, because I just happen to find myself there, and it's just the perfect training for ultra cycling, because ultra cycling is the same thing as the person who can pedal the most constantly over the time period, the strongest, is going to win. In other cycling, it's so different. There's pack dynamics, and there's sprinting, and there's tactics, and there's technicalities and stuff like that. Ultra is just purely whoever can pedal the hardest, the longest, is going to win. And so Zwift and the online cycling just creates that inside of me that I just can go and go and go and go and go and go.
Yeah.
So the other factor that I think that isn't discussed as often for virtual cycling is the trainers have become really good. I didn't do a lot of older ones because I haven't been cycling that long. So they create a good feel like you're cycling on the road, but it's certainly different. Like when I go outside and bike, which I do go outside. I'm starting to get outside this year, and everyone's like, "Oh, you actually do ride outside," because now people are more interested in what I'm doing.
Go touch air, Matthew.
Yeah, they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Like this guy actually, like I posted a ride, and they're like, "Oh, you're actually like biking up a hill," and I'm like, "Yeah, I bike up hills. Like I love that stuff." But I go outside, and it's just so free, and it feels so natural and good, and you have movement, and the bike moves under you. So part of the virtual task is to make your environment as comfortable as you can be. There are rocker plates that allow you to do that, or you can put some special feet underneath your trainers, which create some of that motion. Some of the trainers, like Wahoo, makes a kicker move, which has some of that motion built in, and you can also unlock it, and your bike will actually rock back and forward on like a little pendulum swing. So some of it's creating that's hard for people. And then the other thing is just the resistance in general. Because you're applying pressure to it and it's reacting to that, there's a delay. And so you can, depending on the trainer, you can feel that. So on the kicker trainers where you have like pedals, chain, cassette, trainer, the delay is greater than when I get on my kicker bike, where it's a built-in thing. There's no chain, it's a belt, and it's real smooth. The kicker bike's like the smoothest experience that I've had virtual cycling, the most like it. Even then, it's not perfect. So your equipment matters a ton. And then if you get on and you do a workout and you put it in ERG mode, which is where it controls the watts for you, that kicks people's butt, because it's one, keeping you honest. You can't cheat the system. But then two, if you let up a little bit, it applies more resistance. Like if you slow your cadence down, it applies more. So then you're fighting it a little bit, and people aren't used to that. I do ERG all the time because it's nice that it just holds you there, and I get used to that. But that's hard for people too. So,
Totally.
yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's a different experience in my head. Even going into the day, I have to admit, and Nathan, who had to jump off, several other people who were guests of yours who came on.
Yeah.
It only took me 30 minutes, in the first interview, and I was like, oh, they're not trying to be outdoor cyclists inside. This is an entirely different world.
Yeah.
There are athletes who are devoted to it. It's just different. I mean, it's a different kind of a bike. There's mountain, road, gravel, online, or virtual, and it was rad. I mean, it was just a cool experience to kind of get involved and see it. I ride the Zwift bike, the actual Zwift branded bike
Zwift
itself.
ride. Yep.
And I love it, partially because I don't have to take stuff apart.
Yep.
It's just there all the time.
Yes.
And I have to admit, and my 14-year-old son hooked me on it, but the e-shifting is my favorite. Nice. Because before, with my own bike, it's a pain. And so anyway, and it's not expensive either. No. So good job, Zwift. I mean, I just think you created a cool product, a cool experience. And I want to dive into community maybe at the end, because BrainStoke is about, this idea of connecting with people, doing something you're stoked about. And that is, Zwift has just created something that's so unique about Stoke with others for, quote, being a gamer that doesn't exist.
Right.
And so we got to circle back to that at the end. But
for sure.
So the run-up, right? The run-up, I got to see a little bit of behind the scenes. I know you have an incredible rock star wife, Bailey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your team is likely the best on the planet, in terms of the run up. I know BrainStoke GTR producer was involved. I know you had parents, relatives, just a ton of people, including Envy, who hosted the event, at their headquarters, which was really cool of them. Just a couple of shout outs to the people there: Neil Shirley, Jason Bond. I don't know who else there was involved, if there are others you want to mention, but just a lot of cool, supportive people.
Yeah, it was really cool to have so many people interested and involved. And there was a part of me, because of this different worlds of virtual cycling and real outdoor cycling, I didn't know how many people would be interested, because it's different. And so to go to a company like Envy, and I mean, Wahoo's a little bit of an easier sell because they do a lot of indoor type of stuff, but Rotor we had involved as well. And to go to them and say, you want to be a part of this? Can we come and set up our virtual bikes at Envy headquarters? Something you probably never thought would happen. But then to have them be so interested and so involved was super cool. And yeah, you mentioned them by name as great supporters. And yeah, we can talk a lot about how Bailey's a rock star in all the ways. And
for sure,
she helped bring a lot together. And there's a point where it's like, I can't do all of it. I couldn't do half of it even. And so I said, I know the people and I'm connecting them and I'm getting the ideas going, but I need you. Are you willing to take over basically all of it? And that's the discussion that we have over a course of a few days, and say, this is becoming something bigger than I can manage. And so I need you to take over that. And she took it on and she ran with it and killed it.
It was totally impressive. I have to admit, I roll in on a red eye, show up, and just to see it all set up and to see, frankly, Bailey leading it all, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, And so anyway, so we get, I don't know if you want to comment on anything about the lead up or the run up, but there was also this other narrative going on, about your mother. You're wearing this shirt today. Yep. So give some context to that, because in my head, as if the world records weren't enough.
Right. It's one of the piling things.
Right. And I want to talk about it in psychology because, Matthew, for those of you that have followed, Matthew is a mental health professional by background. So when I get into the psychology of accountability and envisioning the day, as we talking a little bit more about that, but give some context to that, your mom, and there was another cause going into the day.
Yeah. So once again, a big event, big opportunity. I was thinking, how many people could we get involved? And then as I was researching a lot of record opportunities or attempts, I started to recognize a common theme that a lot of them had a charitable aspect to them. And I was like, that's really cool. So it wasn't immediately on my mind, but those kind of prompted it. And then I thought, well, that'd be interesting. I wonder if there's something I could do to that effect. And then it hit me right shortly after that I have this huge life thing going on with my mom's cancer treatment and then recent diagnosis. And I was like, well, that makes total sense to put in a cause there and to work for something beyond myself. Family is the number one thing to me, always has been and always will be. Even as I'm going through trying to pursue cycling more, it's always this balance of, am I giving enough back to my family still, and knowing that taking something on like this changes that scales. Well, then where's the balance, And this was a cool way to be able to balance it a little bit and give back while I do something for myself, really. And it worked out super well. It was a cool. We got another company involved, Drip Swag, here in Utah, that was willing to donate shirts for the event if people were able to donate a certain amount, and we had the donation set up, and yeah, that was a really cool part of the day.
Yeah. I'll dive into my story about that in a little bit, maybe midday, because I think we ought to go through maybe the chronology of the day. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty amazing. There's definitely this component of family. Your parents were there, your brother was there, some other family members, and your boys were there, 2 young boys, which was really cool.
On their little balance bikes.
Yeah, it's cool to see them running around. So kick us off the morning of.
Yeah.
if you don't mind, and what you were thinking, because
Well, let's reverse back to lead up. I mean, we could talk about this for probably 24 hours
Yeah.
because it was a big thing. So I'll
Yeah.
try and be quick about all of it. So there was these months of preparation for this. So I started talking to Peter back in December, and that was a conversation that lasted all the way up until it. Several video phone calls, like many emails back and forth about how to do it, how to involve people, what does it look like online, how do we promote it, is it even possible, all these different conversations. And then as we started to get more and more people involved, it became this thing where it's like Bailey sending out this email to 6 companies, all their marketing people, and trying to figure out what we can do and how to have them involved in everything. So quickly the pressure became high for us to deliver something worth having that many big people involved. So, I mean, we got big companies on the line that are wanting to see a cool event, and we want to put something cool together. And so Bailey spent hours creating templates for our live stream, and then she's done several of these charitable type things in the past for other organizations she's worked for. So all of a sudden the week of, she's like, I'm going to see if they can get like baskets for a raffle, and throwing in things. So you think I'm like that. She's like that as well. The thing is that
she is.
I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I can't do anymore. She gets to the point where she wants to do way beyond the mark. And so then we have to meet each other in the middle and say, where's the reality, which is a good balance that we had. So I say all of that because realistically, we kept coming back to the most important thing here is that we get the record done and that we fulfill all the rules, because we have a whole list of rules that we have to follow. And so that's the number one thing. But we've also created all this other buzz about it.
Stuff.
So not only are we videoing this, we're also going to try and live stream it with like 4 or 5 different cameras. And we're going to patch people on Zoom calls from literally across the world. And how are we going to manage all of that? And we're also at another location. So we had to set up the day before, thinking that it would take us a few hours to kind of just like get everything up, make sure and test it. And immediately we had internet problems and streaming problems and camera problems. Cameras aren't syncing up. And every time we get the system like fully launched, it would crash and not work. And we're like, that can't happen the day of. So we can't just like walk away and be like, we'll figure it out tomorrow and hope for the best. Like, we have to have the video. So especially JT and Bailey went to town for hours just trying to figure this out. And that's part of the stress that I was saying, like, I can't do anything about it. I have to just show up and pedal. So I eventually had to like say, good luck. Hope you guys, I all the faith. I know that you'll figure it out. You'll figure out something. So they were there pretty late that night, just getting everything set up. And even then, last minute, the links like switched on YouTube for the live stream. And so the first little bit was chunky, but then finally we got everything flowing and it worked really good. So the lead up alone was stressful. I think Bailey was ready to pull her hair out before we even started.
Yeah.
And she's just smiling and keeping it together.
And for our listeners, just to hear, it's one thing to not be able to patch in all the media that we wanted to do during it, but they needed a baseline of recording or the records don't matter.
Yep.
I mean, we won't dive into all of it, but the criteria for actually getting a record documented is a ton of stuff.
Yep.
I was surprised when we went through it, a week prior to, kind of going through the checklist. I was like, oh my, to their credit, these organizations who have records, you got to, legitimize them. So, but yeah, it was a friggin' lot of work.
Yeah. They're creating a lot of validity, which is appreciated, and how I wanted to do it. Like, we had to have witnesses there, 2 witnesses the whole day, and they had to watch and document and write a whole bunch of stuff down. So it was just like, there were so many balls up in the air.
Yeah.
And we landed the plane somehow. Well, we're still verifying everything, and we got to get everything done, but it's getting there. So
cool.
So you were asking me about getting started the morning of.
Yeah. So kick us off. Like, when you get up in the morning, what are you thinking? Like, this is the day. There's a ton of people. Yeah. Expecting this to unfold. How are you eating? How did you sleep?
Yeah.
All that.
I had centered really well the night before with the whole you can only get in your way at this point, and everything's done. Like all you have to do is it's just another day. And I think that's probably the trick that I try and use the most to trick myself out of. It's not really just another day, but essentially it is. Like, and at this point, I had actually done a similar effort on Zwift in December. So there was also this like banked, you've done this before, you've lived through this before.
Yeah.
So like you literally know you can do it. You just gotta keep everything the same, nothing new on race day mentality, sleep the same, eat the same, do everything. So I went to sleep in a really good spot. I'm always worried about being able to sleep the night before, but it actually was really smooth this time. Went to sleep really good, woke up and felt good, and just did my normal thing. Had my it's funny, my morning routine is the same, but it changes over time, meaning that like it's the same for a while until I get sick of it. So it's always some sort of caffeine. Lately, it's been coffee for a long time. And then my food of choice lately has been Oreos, and you dip the Oreos in the coffee. So I'm having these dipped Oreos in coffee.
What?
Just like
Why
I do.
did we not get Double Stuff on as a sponsor?
Right?
I mean, Preston and I are crushing them, and we have no performance under our belt.
Well, Oreo, if you're listening.
Totally.
You got
Nabisco,
us.
come on. Send the check. That is funny. So you pounded Oreos?
Yeah.
You dipped Oreos in coffee the
Yeah.
morning of?
Yep.
Oh,
it's not a
my.
lot, but I mean, it's like 6 or 7 or something, but that's 500 calories of Oreos real quick to just have with coffee and get the body running.
I love this.
So,
Okay.
It was smooth. Drank, food, got dressed, kind of got everything ready for the day. Once again, just it's a normal day, you know. It's just the same thing. Don't do anything different. It's tempting to drink different, or I can't remember who it was now I was talking with. I think it's Pat Casey from Peak State Fit who does my fitting, and he was saying it's funny on race day to see people like they're all jittery and they're like bouncing around and they're like stretching, and you're like, dude, you never stretch. Like, what are you doing? and you just like you want to drink more, or you're thinking, how do I handle the day the best or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like your body is used to doing this in the exact way you've been doing it for months. So you don't drink anymore, you don't stretch any different, you don't put on different like it's just literally, when they say nothing new on race day, it's literally nothing new. Your thoughts, your actions, what you eat, all of it should be dialed by that point.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was just leaning heavy into that. You know, you've done this before, and just get there and do it. The difference was that I had to drive over then to Envy and then do it there. But luckily, like we had set up the day before, I basically set up everything exactly like I have it at home. So that was familiar as well. Same fan setups, computers in the same place, everything's where I'm used to it. And we had purposefully set me in a place that I had a good view of outside for when it became daytime, but also that was like away from everyone, so that I wasn't facing the room. So I wasn't watching people. I was locked in on what I was doing.
So that was intentional.
Yeah.
That whole setup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about the temperature of the room?
Yeah, that was interesting because at home I could have controlled it a little more, but they're at a big building. I wasn't necessarily going to ask them to like change the thermostat or whatever, but luckily it was springtime and it was a good temperature in the room anyway. And then we had these doors that we could open if it got too hot, but it was perfect all day. I think it was high 60s or mid 60s or something.
Yeah, I was surprised actually that it was coolish in there.
Mm-hmm.
And just based on what you were doing, I mean, again, for our listeners, if you haven't ridden virtually, riding indoors is hot.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredibly warm, especially when you kind of get ramped up and rolling. I mean, most people who ride do have fans literally blowing in their face, you know?
Yep. I've made the mistake before of doing a pretty hard 4-hour session in a little small office that we have at our house. and like the window in that room was foggy, like just wet in there. So yeah, it gets hot quick. And in fact, when we first went over to Envy and they were showing us spaces they could do it, they had this kind of smaller room set off to the side that we said we could set you up in here. And I was thinking, I'm gonna bake in here. Like there's just no way. So it was nice of them to let us use their space and also use a big, large space so that we did have this air movement and people, and I wasn't having people right in my face. We could set up this little portion where it was just me and then have other people around. So the setup was awesome. I mean, MV did good by us in so many ways.
Yeah,
sure.
totally. I mean, I was impressed when I rolled up. I was like, wow, this is really cool that they allowed this much kind of takeover of, their space. So you kick off the day. What's the plan in terms of nutrition? Just give us that context going in.
Yeah.
Like, what are you eating, drinking, doing in terms of nutrition?
Yeah. So Formula 369 is life. It's it's a great product, and I'll get into it here in a minute. But just to kind of contextualize the nutrition plans for the day, I think I was like 6 or 8 hours in when I actually thought to myself, I didn't bring any backup food. Like every race that I go to, especially because my races are so long, and I realized that like nutrition fatigue can set in and everything, or you can't eat this, but you can eat that type of stuff. I've always brought other stuff. I've always had so many options so that I can switch it up if I need to. And I'm there rolling, and I'm thinking, if this stops working, I don't have anything. Which I think actually speaks really powerfully to Formula 369, because not only there's a lot of training that goes into that. It's not to say that's the only thing that I could be done with it, but it speaks highly that it is one of the things you could do it with, because I just relied on it solely as the nutrition for the day. So yeah, the nutrition was all liquid, and indoors, that's kind of silly. You don't have to do that. Outdoors, I do it specifically because when you're rolling on a TT bike at 25 miles per hour, eating anything becomes a little bit of a challenge. And so I switched to liquid earlier this year to make that easier. And then while this was an event and its own goal, it's also part of a series of events for this year. And so it was its own thing, but it's all training. It's all getting ready for the next thing. So I stayed on liquid nutrition for it when I could have been eating Oreos or something else.
Yeah.
Maybe would have been a little more enjoyable, but my stomach handles it really well. I have the salt down to a science, how much salt I need to take in. I know generally how much liquid I need to take in. So I have it kind of set up that I'm going to be drinking that much. And then I have a water on hand to kind of supplement when I need to. But I had an energy bottle that was just the Formula 369 Endurance and water with a little bit of extra salt. And I have these 950 milliliter bottles, and there's 1,200 calories in that one bottle. So I have this video on Instagram where the bag says like, for an easy ride, 1 scoop, and for a medium ride, 2 scoops, and for like your long endurance heavy rides, 3 scoops. And I'm like scooping stuff in, and it's 11 scoops that go in the bottle.
11
for mine, yeah. So Eric jokes and says it works for him, but I don't recommend anyone else doing it. Eric's the creator of Formula.
Is it sludge? Like when you go to
it mixes up surprisingly well.
You're kidding.
No, I've done it with I bought my own malto and fructose off of Amazon.
Yeah.
And it's like sludge. But the Formula 369, it just mixes right up. I mean, it's thick, but it's not like viscous thick. It's just
wow.
It works.
11.
Yeah.
I actually don't know why we've never talked about that.
Yep.
Because I'm a
1,200
3
calories.
to 4 scoop, and I'm like, that's enough.
It's amazing that the taste works out, because there's a part of me that thought when I wanted to try doing that it would just get super sweet or super nasty. But something about that formula, it's good with 1 scoop, and it's good with 11 scoops.
Wow.
And I think honestly, everyone's like, how do you eat so much? I did 273 watts the whole time, which is just under 1,000 calories per hour, just purely from cycling. So if you're burning that much, your body wants food.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of it where it's like, if I drank that probably sitting on the couch, it'd probably be disgusting. But on the bike when I'm working that hard, it's great and it works.
So say that one more time. So just under 1,000 calories per hour.
Yeah.
You were burning.
Yeah, I think 277 watts is technically 1,000 calories per hour. So it's like 900 and something. Yeah. And so burning 1,000 plus resting on top of that, which for me is about a little over 100 calories. So I'm basically 1,100 calories in the hole every hour that I'm on the bike for 24 hours. And you can pull from your body a certain amount if you're at the right energy level from your fat stores and also the glycogen that's in your body, although the glycogen is going to get eaten up pretty quick within the first few hours of an event like this. So I, over time of training, have done the math, and it's like you if you're going to be able to pull 200, 300, 400 calories from your body, that's kind of what I've seen out there in the data that you can pull during a zone 2 or a lower effort. That's 700 600 calories that you have to eat. Like there's no getting around that, unless you have some crazy adaptation where you can pull more from your body, or otherwise you have to go down in effort, because you can pull more from your body, but it takes longer processor. And so I was taking in 800 calories an hour while burning that 1100, so I was still asking 300 calories from my body. But that's a big difference than asking 500 calories from your body while you're doing this. And that took a lot of training. That took a lot of gut prep to, I don't know if you've ever tried to eat that many calories per hour. I don't know, probably no one has. Everyone was like, this has got to be some 24-hour eating record or burning record as well. Because it's a ludicrous amount of food.
One of your guests actually said that. He said, Matthew is so strong, but something to the effect of, but his gift is his ability to eat. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It's true. I mean, that's a challenging thing. Online, your Instagram, you're known as like this incredible, like you show a lot of food, you love to cook, you're a chef. I mean, just some amazing things. Was that preparation of eating, like in your opinion, like was it as important as the fitness?
For sure. Yeah, they say, what's that saying? Running is 90% mental and 10% physical. Pretty sure everyone said that.
Yeah.
After I've been biking for a while, I started saying that I think cycling's like 40% mental, 40% eating, and 20% physical. Because cycling's pretty demanding engine-wise. Like you do have to have the engine to do anything. And just like they say with the running, you have to have the mental to access it. But if you don't eat in cycling, you're done. Like in running, you wear out in other ways, and you can't go as far or as long or as hard as some people are nowadays. And interestingly enough, there's a guy who broke the Leadville 100 running race record this last year. And very similarly, he ate a ton of food during it. He actually studied competitive food eaters. There's a really interesting, I think it's a Rich Roll episode that he has him on, and he studied competitive food eaters to learn how to eat more and have his body process food so that he could eat more while running and then run faster. And I mean, he killed the record by a significant amount of time.
That's wild.
So the food to me is right up there. Like you have to do the training, but if you can't learn how to eat, it doesn't matter. Especially when you go over 8 or 12 hours, you can do, an hour and a half for sure without eating anything. People do that all the time. You can even do 6 to 8 hours pretty hard and not eat that much. You can pull a lot out of your body. But as soon as you're crossing over 10, 12 hours, if you're not eating, it's going to go south fast.
Yeah. So I'm doing the math. I know you know these numbers off the top of your head, but what was the caloric intake for the day?
19.2 thousand calories plus the 500 in the morning. So almost just shy of, and then I ate right after. So right around 20,000 calories taken in.
And how much did you burn?
23,500 active calories. So then plus my resting energy, so putting me about 27,000.
Amazing.
That's just like, those numbers don't even make sense. It's like when you talk other it's just
no. How much water?
I actually didn't measure it super carefully. I have in the past, but this time I had bottles refilled partially, and so I don't have an exact number, but it was at least 25 liters of water.
Crazy.
Which is like 50 pounds of water.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Let's dive into the time, but just to give context to listeners, because I thought this was interesting. Do you remember the first time you got off the bike to use the restroom? Mm-hmm. I want you to describe your restroom, how that worked, and what the time was when you got off, how long you were off before you got back on.
Yeah. So first of all, the restroom description. Here I am asking MV headquarters to use their office as a world record attempt. And then I think probably definitely the most awkward question I had to text Neil Shirley was, can I set up a porta potty right next to myself? Like, and they're bike people, so they get it. Like,
Totally.
we pee off bikes.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself. I've peed on myself, not by choice, but it just happens. So we've done some stupid stuff outdoors. So he shot back a text right away, like, yeah, no problem. But I was like, that's just awkward. So I had a porta potty like literally 5 or 6 steps away from me behind some of the banners that was set up for me to go in there when I need to. So I was 9 hours and something in when I first stopped, which is what I've about done on the last few ultra things that I've done. I can do about 9 or 10 hours comfortably. I know people who have done 12 hours. I actually know people who say they've never got off for 24 hours, which like blows my mind. And so, yeah, it was like 9.5 hours or something like that I first got off. And my thoughts when I was getting ready to get off was like, don't fall on your face. Like, you've been pedaling a bike for so long, for so hard. Like, I hope you remember how to walk. And the floor is all the concrete shiny. So I got off, luckily didn't fall on my face, went over, did my thing really quick. And I think I was off. I know the average was like 1 minute and 20 seconds or 1 minute and 30 seconds for every time that I got off. But I think that first one, because I weighed myself as well, was like 130 or 140 or something.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
I was 6 minutes and 18 seconds off the bike total for the whole day. And that was 5 stops. So, I mean, it had to be 1 minute and 20 or 1 minute and 30.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Under 7 minutes for 24 hours to go to the restroom.
Yes. Which, thank you, Envy, for letting me set up a porta potty, because it would have been probably double that if I had to walk across the building.
Yeah.
It paid off.
Or longer.
Yeah.
And you may have hit the deck, actually.
Yeah, I probably
with those beautiful shiny floors in there.
I probably would have.
That's wild. I mean, so just in my head, I'm thinking 24 hours, no food, eating, just all the nutrition's coming through bottles.
And every other second, like to your point about virtual cycling, is pedaling. So I was talking once again with Pat about, like, you probably stop pedaling for more than 6 minutes and 18 seconds on a couple hour outdoor ride, because you're coasting down a hill or you're stopping for a stoplight.
More than that.
Yeah, your cumulative buildup is more than that. So
100%.
I was only not pedaling for 6 minutes and 18 seconds.
I mean, I group rode on Saturday for 4 hours up to the top of Big Mountain and back. And the number of times that I was number 12 position behind 11 guys drafting and just stopped pedaling.
Yeah. Well, in Big Mountain, you're descending for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Alone.
It's just different. So when you were getting off on those times to go to the restroom, did you have moments where you're like, your legs are just, this is brutal?
Part of the stopping quick is to not let it set in. One of the worst challenges that I've had was Everesting, because it was 2 minutes down the section that I was doing, and then 12 minutes up. So by the time I got to the bottom and started pedaling again, it hurt so bad every time to like hit the legs again with all the watts after not pedaling, even just for 2 minutes, especially many, many laps in. So part of the philosophy of stopping quick for me is like, don't let the body think that it's done, or don't let anything settle in. But certainly the last 2 or 3 stops, when I got off, I was like, oh man, I am tired. Like, these legs are there. They hopefully they have a couple hours left in them, but they're getting done.
When you're on, so just go to the middle of the day, sometime during the day, and I was there. I mean, there's some guys that started in the lobby with you in Envy. Guys are on their bikes and they're hammering. Everybody's, sweating who's involved. And there's a bunch of people online. How did it feel to come and go? People who started with you and then would stop, and then a new group of fresh people would jump on.
Yeah.
And you're just continuing to empty the tank.
Yeah. So, and this I can describe some more of like the Zwift part of it. So the speed that I was on Zwift was not my own speed. I was in a pack for the day. and there's this something called a robo pacer, and these robo pacers just do these laps around different loops on Zwift, and you can hop in with them at any point, and there's, there could be 5 people there could be 100 people there riding together. And the way that I knew that I could do this record is the top pacer, whose name is Constance, sometimes gets on a route called Tempest Fewett, and it's like the flattest long route on Zwift. And when that pacer's on that route, that pacer can average 26.5 to 27.5 miles per hour. But also, it's dependent upon the group that's there. If everyone's just behind the pacer drafting it, then its power is the speed that you're going, and that's when it's going 26.5. But if you get enough people there and a couple people get in front of it, now all of a sudden this robo pacer, just like real life, is now drafting these real people, and you can pull the bot faster. And so all of a sudden the group can be doing 27.5 average. And with riding with it enough, I realized, okay, so if we get enough strong people involved and in front of this pacer, we can ramp this pace up so that it's as fast as it possibly can be. So long story short, we had my biggest task the weeks leading up to it for the actual record attempt on Zwift was telling as many people that I know on Zwift about the event, and to convince especially the strong ones, come and pull for a while, come and get on the front. And because this is the fastest pacer. I mean, the pacer's doing 4.2 watts per kilogram, 315 watts. So to get out in front of it, if you're a normal size person, you're doing 340, 350, 360 watts to pull this pacer. And we're going to try and do that for at least half of the time. Was the idea, was if we can keep it fast for a while, then it'll balance out eventually. So I know a lot of people on Zwift, and we ride together a lot. And so a lot of people were like, heck yeah, I want to be a part of that. I want to come and ride with you, and I'll help and pull out. I'll help and pull for a while. And the challenge was that certain times of the day work better for different people. And so I had to try and find enough people to be there at the down times. But there were times when the group was so big and so fast that it was a little bit touch and go. Like, I knew that I could get to a certain point at the watts that I wanted to do, but any faster, and I'm in danger of losing the group or being in trouble. So it was cool. It was great to have everyone there. They're people that I ride with all the time. You probably saw in there that I was chatting pretty constantly.
Yeah, the whole time.
With people and talking about what's going on and thanking them for being there, and also just doing our normal thing. Like, one of my favorite times was probably like 18 hours in, which was the middle of the night for me. And so the people that are on there at that time are like the super early Europeans or the super late Americans who are there. And so it's an interesting crowd of people, and it's just a regular day to them because they're not as familiar with me because I don't ride that time super often. And so it's just a normal day, and we're chatting and joking and just having a normal time, and they're just having a good time and just happen to be there, which is one of the reasons why we did it with the Robo Pacer too, because we knew that some people would just like show up there as a normal training day or whatever.
Yeah. Robo Pacer. So just to describe this, you're not drafting, meaning when you're with the pack is moving at the speed, but are you getting a benefit from them that you would outside?
Yeah.
Meaning there's efficiency there that you're not feeling in your legs.
So it's the same and different. The same in the fact that you do less watts to keep up that group speed that you would do, but it's not super dynamic in your trainer. Like, you don't feel it happening on your actual bike like you would outdoors, but the position of your avatar in the game will determine how fast you're going with the pack or not.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the right wattage, you'll just kind of stay in the right part of the pack depending upon the pack speed. But then if someone gets on the front and starts pulling hard, just like real life, that pack will move away from you unless you build the watts up to stay in the draft. So you don't feel it, but it's happening visually. And if you watch the video, I was pretty laser focused because I knew there was a couple things. I knew that if I lost this group, any surge that I had to put in comes at a price, right? So I'm doing 273 watts. If I lose the group, to chase back onto the group, all of a sudden I'm doing 350 watts to get back onto them. Hopefully for not very long, because hopefully I caught it soon enough. That's gonna show up later on down the road.
Yeah.
And then if I lose them, if I get to the point where I slip up and come off of them, now I'm on my own. And there is something in Zwift where you can teleport to different people or robo-pacers at any moment. And you can also do something called a coffee, where you can actually take 3 minutes off the bike every 30 minutes and go and take a break if you need to or something. I had decided that for an official record attempt, those were not going to happen. Like this was going to be straight up done the right way I felt like, and not make use of any of those purely electronic benefits. Like I said, everything else in the game is so spot on to real life in a sense that it creates a real mode that, like, being able to teleport back in or being able to take, so the coffee break, you can take 3 minutes every 30 minutes. You can take 6 minutes off the bike every hour and stay with this group speed. So technically someone could go out there and beat my record and only ride 90% of the time that I rode just by doing coffee.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just silly to me. So I wanted to do it straight up. So I knew that if I lost the group, I was crap out of luck for a while, and I was going to be slower for that time period.
So did that occur? Meaning I jump off the bike, go pee, a minute and 20 minutes, or a minute, 20 seconds. I got to get back on, and I got to push, watts, 320, 330, get back on the group.
So the group, the route is an out and back that has loops at the end. And so they're just doing this constant kind of looping motion the whole time. And it's 10.7 miles. So it's 5 miles one way. So I knew that at the turnarounds was the point that I could take a break and they would go and do the turnaround. And then I would hop back on them the other way, because you can turn around which before you could teleport, which was only a couple years ago, that's how we always used to do it. Was you had to meet up with the actual pacer. You couldn't just show up there, and you couldn't coffee on them either, which is what the break is called. So I had timed out in the weeks prior how long it took the group to go and do that loop at different points. So I knew they'd be 3 minutes at this point, and 5 minutes at this point, and 2 minutes at this point. And I know how long it can take me to do a bathroom break. So I was more loose in the beginning to make sure that I made it back on the group. But then as the day went on and I figured out where I could stop and not lose as much time to getting back onto the group, I cut it pretty close. In fact, one time, so there was a special pacer called 24-hour record for the event. It was the exact same as the regular Constance pacer and all the other metrics. It was just a different name and set up specifically for the event, which also meant that the real Constance was actually still live in the game as well. And it was on not the same route, but a route that intersected with it every now and then. And so one time when I took a break, it was just how it happened. Constance was coming through, and I got mixed up and thought that Constance was the 24-hour pacer. And I thought that I had like either taken a break too long or they were faster or something. And so I like flipped around too early, and I was that time I was ahead of the group, and I had to like tell the guys behind, like, hey, push it and catch up with us. And so I'm messaging people asking them to like bridge up to me. Another time I thought that I had more time, and I turned around too late. And by the time, because it forks, the road does, where you do the turnaround, and I had gone down this route a little bit. And so then I turned around and was coming back, and they were ahead of me by like 10 or 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So that was the one time out of 24 hours, which there's so many pieces that go into this. Like, that's a real world situation where you got to stay on a group and manage that all day.
Yeah.
That was the one time that I had to chase on my own. And luckily, since I only had to do that once, it was easy, and it was early enough in the day that it was no problem for me, and it didn't have any huge consequences for the day. But that was a big part that I was pretty anxious about, and why I said that I was going to have to be pretty devoted to the effort itself, because I had to manage that the whole day.
Yeah. That's a stress in and of itself of just managing that, the component to it. So when you talk about a 24-hour record and you were off 6 minutes, is the 6 minutes that you were off the bike, restroom stop, is that part of the 24 hours?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the clock is continuous.
Okay.
By Guinness and by WUKA, we had to have a separate running clock from the game or my head unit or anything else. So we had these stopwatches that started, and they didn't stop until 24 hours on the dot. So every break was go
Counted.
time.
Fascinating. So take us to some moments, couple key moments. One, what's the most surprising moment of the day for you? Was it fatigue? Was it, hey, I'm feeling better than I thought? And maybe give some context to just, I mean, so you're on the bike 24 hours. You've already said your average watts were 273. What is the speed?
27.1 miles per hour. Our moving speed was like 27 and a half for the whole day, but 27.1.
I could say so much right now, but for people listening who don't ride bicycles, this is absurd.
Yeah, it's a fast pace. So one of the most surprising things overall, Zwift was its own thing, but WUKA, World Ultra Cycling Association, calculated my speed separately. So whatever I did on Zwift didn't matter at all to WUKA. They actually had me go and do an outdoor aerodynamic test where they calculated my CDA coefficient of drag based upon all the factors that go into that. So the rolling resistance, the wind on the day. Essentially, it's trying to see like how efficient are you cutting through the air. And so they come up with a number for that based on that. And then that number is used to calculate my watts on the day, what my speed is going to be. So at Sebring in Florida, I had done like 24 miles per hour at significantly less watts, fighting some stuff for the day. I think my average was 233 for the day or something. Since then, I've done a lot of improvements. I got on a different bike. I got the fit better for me. And I got some different components to make myself try and be more aero. Like little things, like you know how the triathletes all have the water bottles in their chest to make that pocket better. And so I'm just dialing all of that. And so I did the test, and I did 27 and a half miles per hour at 270 watts. And the goal was always to do 27 to 28 miles per hour in Zwift. But my goal in real life was to break over 26, maybe do 26 and a half miles per hour at those watts. So, but I had done all this work and didn't know what the outcome was until I did that test. So when I did that test, I was ecstatic. I was like, holy crap, we've gotten really fast on that. What that ended up meaning was that I actually, by WUKA's calculations on my TT bike on my own virtually, went farther than the Peloton took me in Zwift. And that's not official. They've told me the number, but it's not released to the public yet. But I went 650 miles on Zwift, and they calculated that I, in my position and everything, went 658 miles. So I did 8 more miles than my virtual avatar did by their calculations. And that's based off of my power and my CDA, and then also my position on the day of. So this was probably the craziest part of the day, and the most intense part of the day to me was the position. On Zwift, you have the luxury of your avatar is just going to be aero no matter what. You don't have to do anything to make it be down. And so people who do Zwifting, they stand, they stretch, they sit up, they go handless. It's just free for all, whatever you want to do. And it's nice to be able to get up and stretch and move around. But WUKA, their record was specific that they wanted it timed, how much time I spent in aero TT on the drops or standing, because they were going to penalize my speed for every second that I spent out of position, because that's what happens in real life, and they're about real life cycling. And so I did this crazy thing and committed to being in TT position on the bike the whole day, just like I would be outside. And it was punishing. Like I practice that way inside to get good at it outside. But to do it 24 hours inside when you don't have to was this like massive hurdle. Like I'm seeing the benefit in virtual numbers on the game, but that's not really real. The only thing that I had to hang on to was that my number was going to be better at the end of the day from Wuka. Like
Totally.
there was,
I actually was shocked about this very thing.
yeah.
Because sitting there, you know, and I didn't stay for 24 hours. I went home, you know, went to bed for 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the night. But watching you in arrow position, having done Ironman personally and being in that, I was shocked. Your neck, your back. I mean, these are those things where I'm like, virtual or not, I mean, all of those things, you sat, even if you just sat there and you never pedaled a stroke, sitting in your position for 24 hours watching a screen is an endurance feat in and of itself.
For sure. And admittedly, outdoors, there's more to like the core stabilization and the shocking and everything like that. So it's less so than outdoors, but just the mental part, like I said, that there was no ticker, there was nothing telling me that there was no feedback.
There's no efficiency like benefit.
Yeah, it was just purely committing to the fact that it was going to have a better outcome that like was mental havoc throughout the day.
Oh yeah. Well, I could make an argument that when you're outside and you're in an arrow position, that you do get the benefit of some contour.
Sure.
Where even if you just move around a little bit and like just just leaning a little bit one way or another, just to let your hips open up or something, but to be locked in a position. That was wild.
Yeah.
So talk about when you speak about wreaking havoc just on the day mentally, how? Like how? Where did you go?
It was a lot of mental gymnastics, and it was probably the number. Besides keeping with the group and staying on top of nutrition and the stuff that I have to just think about.
Yeah, the logistics.
It was the thing on my mind the most. Like it was that voice, and we've all experienced this on race day, that thing that says to stop, or that thing that says you can't do it or you're not strong enough. That was the voice of the day, was like, there's no way you can keep this position that long. Like and eventually, because I have this math brain of mine that I can start calculating through, well, how much am I really going to lose if I just take a little more breaks, if I just stand up a little bit longer? What if I sit up for 10 minutes or something? And there were two things that happened that were significant to get me past those moments. One was, once again, my experience with Ultra is that, like, if you give a mouse a cookie type mentality, any taking off is so much harder to go back on because you realize it's comfortable. Like I knew that if I sat up for a little while, it was going to feel good, and that would be nice for the minute, but it would suck going back down into it.
Yeah, and then your mind wants it again.
It wants it again, yeah. So I had rationed out that I could stand up for 30 seconds every so often. At the beginning, it was every half hour. So for every 30 minutes, I stood up for 30 seconds for 12 hours. And then the second half, I stood up for 30 seconds every 15 minutes. So I gave myself double time, but I'm only standing up for 2 minutes. And so those times were different because it was a deal with myself. Like I wasn't thinking about how good it felt. That was my only time to like stretch and move around, and I didn't let myself think about it too much. But I knew that if I had taken a break, that I would enjoy that break enough that I wouldn't want to go back into the position. So I knew that as soon as I gave up any ground there, it was game over. It was going to be its own battle for the rest of the day. So I kept the battle staying down. The battle was, don't get up unless you have to, unless you really can't do it anymore. Then there's no negotiating here. You can't get out of this. Even
I have to admit, like for listeners, okay, I just want you to picture this. This is a dude who's fighting himself. He's fighting a position. He's literally fighting the clock just to stay on. Don't get off the bike. Stay on the bike. People are walking around with cinnamon rolls. People are walking around like laughing and smiling and like just joking. And then there's a dude that's then over in the corner and he's rallying 273 watts for 20. I mean, Matthew, the point that killed me, to be honest with you, was when I saw who I consider two grown men, very talented bikers, one of which was a former like pro, U.S. national champion cyclocross. And like they get on the bikes on Sunday morning with you. these guys are destroying themselves to just, I mean, I think they rode for a couple hours with you.
Yeah.
And you had been riding for 22 hours at that point through the night.
Yep.
So, I mean, I knew what I was watching was wild, but then when I saw some pretty top tier guys get after it who, you know, are really strong in their own right, and to kind of see the physical toll it was taking on them was pretty wild.
Yep. It's a pretty brutal pace. We jokingly had Bailey try and get on and stay with it, and she lasted 44 seconds, just full out, breathing hard in our house. And
you're so calculated about it all. So I just have to ask you this while we're on that point in particular of pacing.
Yeah.
Because to the natural eye walking in and just seeing what was going on, your RPM was incredibly low for most cyclists when you look at this kind of efficiency of 90 revolutions per minute, right? That your pedals are going around and around. Was that, obviously that was intentional.
Yeah.
All of this it was planned and practiced.
Exactly. It was practiced. Yeah. Yeah. The golden area, 80 to 100 RPM is what everyone says you need to be cycling in. And if you're not, you're messing up and you're doing something wrong. Just like they tell you, you can only eat this much, or only train this much, or never.
Yeah.
There's all these do's and don'ts. And I've done this thing with cycling where it's like, don't throw out getting help or researching things, but anytime someone tells you this is where you have to be, throw that out. Like, just stop listening to that person. Not in the fact that you don't take that and then look and see what other people say and then do some research and see what the general consensus is, but like, don't commit anything to like, this is how you have to do it or this is how you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Especially because most of those things, when you look into them, you'll find so many different accounts and research studies that prove that person basically wrong. And RPM or cadence that we're talking about is one of those. That there is a natural cadence that most people will go to at different effort levels and different times of life. And so cadence is so individualized that I've seen in the data that you really just have to find it. You really just have to figure out what works for you. And you never commit to a number. Like, never say I'm always going to be 90 spot on. And I've done the whole metronome or music at a certain pace and pedaled it out and tried to train myself to do it just to experiment with that. So I'm also saying it's not that I've just written it off completely and stopped listening at all. No, I've tested it myself. I've done long rides where I do it, and over time I think I could adapt to it. But like I said, the research has shown find your cadence and then that's it. And same thing with cycling dynamics. Everyone talks about like whether you pull up on the stroke or whether you push harder here or there. And pretty much everything that I've seen is like, you just figure out how you're supposed to pedal, and that's the way you pedal. And so I've committed to that, and I found in these ultra endurance events that my cadence gets just super low. And it happens in training, it happens on these long events, but when I'm pushing it, it goes up. And when I get I pretty much know where the numbers are, but it also depends how long I am into the day. If you look at my data, I started around 70 RPM, but by the end of the day, I was grinding away at 60, which was part of these big, good cyclists on the bike. One of them was trying to match my cadence and power, and they were like, I have no idea how you're doing, because that's a grind for most people. It's like 270 watts at 60.
So you dropped.
Mm-hmm.
So as your fatigue went up, your RPMs went down.
Yes.
And you pushed a bigger gear. So did you shift to keep the 273?
So I used ERG all day. So the trainer was keeping the watts for me. I was constantly bumping it to stay in the group and be in the right spot if I needed to. But the trainer was holding it for me, and so I was literally just pedaling whatever felt natural and nice. And it dropped throughout the day. And it's the same thing outdoors for me. The same thing happened in Sebring. I think, and outdoors I'm typically 5 to 10 RPM higher anyway. There's something and this is really common with a couple other ultra cyclists I know, that all of them are like 5 or 10 RPM less inside. I don't really know why. I just know that it's a common phenomenon. And so at Sebring, I started at 75 and I ended at 65, like literally 5 RPM difference.
Fascinating. in my head, that's different because as fatigue comes on,
Well, that's what they tell you.
I
If
don't.
you're tired, spin, spin,
Yeah.
spin.
And just because my legs are, I want to push less weight,
Right.
when I'm fatigued. And so I don't, that was wild.
It's the same work. It's just different systems, from what I understand. I'm not an expert on this, but from what I understand, you're loading the muscles more when you're spinning slower, and you're loading your cardio system more when you're spinning faster.
Right.
That's my rudimentary understanding of it.
Yeah.
And so I think some of that would just depend where your strength lies and where you're good at or where you train at. I know very well that my muscular system is way stronger than my cardio system. It's always been that way my whole life when I do things. If I do things slow and steady, I can produce a lot better result in the long run than if I do fast. I get out of breath at those fast levels, but I can grind all day at stuff.
Clearly.
Yeah, obviously.
Clearly, you can grind.
Yep.
Incredible. Pick out another moment. A moment in the day where, you're thinking about what? Fatigue, the pressure. Am I on track?
So I'll pull other ones, so it's not just this, but a little bit back to the position again.
Yeah.
So in the last 4 hours was when I really did the math of like, the work is done. Like you've like, if you set up the last 2 hours, and I did all the calculations, you're gonna lose 4 miles off of your WUKA thing, off of your WUKA final time. And so I was like, at that point, it was worth it in my head. That was the immediate thought, was like, 4 miles, I'll sacrifice that for getting out of this stupid position.
Yeah.
But then once again, the mental battle starts, and it's like, you didn't do all of this work. Like, I was thinking, like, for example, we'll bring in Bolt and shaving legs. Like, you shaved your legs for this to save like 5 watts to go a few seconds faster over. And you also you buy these silly, stupid Aero socks to go faster outside, and you wax your chain. Like, you did all these things to go a little bit faster here, a little bit faster there, to then just like throw away 4 miles. Like, that's dumb. At that point, it was like tough love to myself. Like, you are being dumb. Like, don't just give up stuff here.
Was that the self-talk?
Oh yeah. Yeah. At that point, like earlier on in the day, it's a lot more tempered, and I can like haggle it out with myself. But when you're that tired and everything, you just need it straight. And it's like you didn't come this far to give up that. Like, put everything on the table. And there's also, of course, a piece of me that's like, if someone's gonna come and take this, they're gonna have to work for it. Like, I only want to do this once.
Totally.
Like, I remember crossing the 24-hour record and saying out loud, "Let's bury it." And that's not like a competitive, like, I'm gonna show that person up or whatever. It was like, literally, especially for an indoor 24-hour record, I only want to do this way once. Like, so don't get up, don't let up. Like, it's go time.
I was shocked to the finish line, how that last few minutes went, which I want you to talk about. But before that,
Yeah.
in my head, I don't know why, but I struggle pulling an all-nighter. I always have been.
Yeah.
What was there some dark moments when it gets quiet in there? People are gone. I mean, it was never empty for you, but how was night?
Yeah, that's a great one to pull from. I struggle at night times as well. Certainly all-nighters. I do a lot of early morning writing, so it's not that I'm not used to being in the dark, but especially because I keep my schedule so tight. I work, I'm a father, I'm a husband. Those are my main time themes. Training, it comes in, and so sleep is really like set. Like, this is when I sleep. So my circadian rhythm is like super strong, or not circadian, but my personal rhythm for sleep is like dialed. When it's time to go to sleep, it's time to go to sleep. And a lot of that cues off of like nighttime, because that's when I go to sleep. So I've noticed during these ultra events, when it gets dark, I start to crash quick. And my first ultra event, that hit me so much harder than I thought it would. So I didn't prep for it right. Since then, I've realized I have to start the caffeine prior to it getting dark and to that like normal sleep time, to push through that. And then the whole night's just going to be kind of hard. Inside though, I've realized it's a lot different because the lights are on and there was people around and stuff. So both my indoor Zwift at home that I did 24 hours and at Envy were significantly easier than outdoors because it's so much brighter and the light's going. So that was less hard, but yeah, you get, I mean, you just get super tired. Like there's no other way to say it. Then everything starts to get fuzzier and it's the part that you're lowest on calories. If you started in the morning, you're finishing through the night. You know, I've thought, would it be better to do these events starting at nighttime so I get through the night first and then end during the day? Would that make a difference? That's something to think about. I eventually want to do a shot at the outdoor record or at least do an outdoor 24-hour where I optimize everything just like I did for this.
Yeah.
And that's one thought that I have is maybe I need to start right as it's getting dark so I'm finishing all in the day, because that hits me like a ton of bricks.
I would totally be, in that camp of trying to do it that way, just because like, I mean, it's one thing to be fatigued physically and then to know that you're going to come through the finish line in the middle, towards the nighttime hours. I mean,
Yep.
I would be a mess. I would crash my bike.
Yep. At Sebring, where it was the hardest, I was taking 100 milligrams of caffeine every 90 minutes to stay awake, and it would work for 60 to 75 minutes. And then it would be just 15 to 20 minutes, or maybe sometimes 30 minutes of like just haziness, like just stay awake, focus on something, like do something. But the caffeine would take you so far. But doing that for 12 hours was like 800 milligrams of caffeine. So it's like, how much can you take? How much can you get away with and not overdo that as well?
Because it's harsh on your stomach too, right?
Yeah, all of it. Yeah. You risk shutting down your stomach for sure if you take too much. And then, of course, messing with your heart and everything. So I think it was Tyler Pierce, vegan cyclist or VC Adventure, that said what he's doing is not healthy. They were talking about like, this is beyond the, like, usually you exercise to be healthy. This is not that. And certainly there's a lot of pieces of this that it's like, yeah, this isn't what you should probably do as a human being to be the most healthy.
I'm glad you bring him up because, through the day, we got to meet a lot of characters, some really cool people, Europe, around the world. And it was so cool for us to be able to interact with some of those, guys. And, it was unique to hear athletes being supportive of each other and how complimentary of you that they were, and, all that, that you're doing. And, just, it was neat. Some of the things that were said, without naming names, cause I don't want to, overstate it. But there were a couple of moments where guys literally were saying, yeah, where do we go from here when Matthew's doing this? And he's been riding bikes for like 3 years, so will you speak to that just a little bit in terms of mentorship? What did you see? What have you seen? What gave you a vision for you wanting to be, in this world and chasing such big things so quickly?
Yeah. Certainly goes into a little bit of the community piece as well with the Zwift that we can wrap into there eventually more. I've heard someone say the ultra cycling world is a small pond with several very big fish. Like it's not a huge community, but there are people who have done it and done it really well for a long time, or are the kind of like people that are dominating it or doing the best at it right now. But they're all around the world. So the main guys that I've talked to about this live in Europe or somewhere else. And so to meet them would be a rare occurrence normally, but because of Zwift, we all end up there. And so the main one that I've talked to the most is his name. He goes by Hoppo, Chris Hopkinson. Just a wild guy.
The coolest.
I really...
So cool.
I want to help him, or I want to help you guys, or I wish I had some money to put something on it and like capture his life and his mind and everything. I think a lot of people similarly think this of me in some of the aspects, like they just don't know how to get in their head. there's so much in Hoppo that I want to like get out and put on paper. Like if you've ever read David Goggins books, like that type of stuff. Like I want to, I want to get his life on paper because the man is just like a miracle in so many ways. He's raced ultra for a couple decades. He's going to finish up 50 12-hour races and 50 24-hour races this year. And he's done Ram 4 times. One time when he was sick for 4 days of it, like he went in with a cold and just started anyway, because why not? Like you're going to do a 11-day race. Like let's start with the flu. Why not? And so he recovered on the bike over 4 days and then kept biking for the next 7 days to finish Ram. He's biked like 22 hours with broken bones. Like he's just beyond what my mind can comprehend. So we met, and I started picking his brain about ultra as I got into it. And out of the kindness of his heart, he talked with me about it and answered questions and gave me insights into gear and how to do it and how to fuel and all this type of stuff. And so we just became friends talking about ultra racing. And it's bizarre. I've experienced this before because I grew up in the internet age with video games. So I've connected with people online playing video games before, but never in such a, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because to a lot of people, video games, that life is real, but I mean in like a very tangible way. Like we're doing something that is not just virtual. It's a real world. We have tires on the road, right? Like we race bikes in real life, but we connected in that way. And it's like, we're like some of the best of friends, but like I've never met him. In fact, like talking to him in like over Zwift and over messages and stuff, first couple times that I chatted with him was around this event. And we've been talking for a year or more, about bikes and stuff. So he was one of the main guys, and he's pretty much been the one who's told me who to look into and where to get information from. And so that's connected me with Marco and other people who Marco was on there as well, and another legend of the sport. And so it was cool to just like meet these people and have them be interested in what I'm doing and be supportive and show up and talk about it. Cause I mean, it's like I said, it's a small world, and it's a relatively, like everyone knows Michael Phelps, but you say Marco Ballo and Chris Hopkinson and no one knows who you're talking about. But these guys are the legends of the sport. And so to have them be involved was really cool.
It was cool. And it was cool because as they told their stories, you recognized that they have the same, something's off, right? Even you kind of smirked when I said that, like you get it, right? Like something's off. And it's this inner thing about really, really enjoying the intimacy of suffering, of hurting, and being willing to go there, deep in your mind. And it was cool to talk to them about it and to hear them describe it. I mean, I wish Hoppa would write a book.
Oh, I want him to. I'm talking to him about it weekly.
Are you?
You've got to do it.
Yeah. I mean, because there's so much to be learned about, his suffering and in that experience through, all he's gone through. What's cool about it, maybe speak to this part, Matthew, of just guys who've been at it a long time and who kind of like this idea of the torch passing.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, does it validate that others are kind of taking it on and taking it forward for what they've done?
Yep. Yeah. I've heard that several times talking to these guys. Is they're really stoked about a new generation coming and doing it, especially because ultra cycling isn't in the spotlight of a lot of people. So, I mean, it's their legacy, it's their life, it's what they've devoted themselves to. And honestly, similar to me, most of it was for themselves. Most of it was an internal, like you said, that's something that's off. There's something about us that if no one was watching, right? Like I did the same thing basically in December in my house on my own because I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so if no one was watching, we would do it. It's something about us. And there are people out there doing it right now. There are people out there doing all these crazy, like Alex Honnold, the free climbing guy, you know him. Like he's out there doing stuff that no one knows about. No one has any idea what he's done and what he's been through. He only shares a portion of it. So we'd be doing it. But since they've done it for so long and this, I'll pull a little bit from the mental health psychology side. As you get older, there's this natural drive to give back and be part of something bigger and to give to the next generation. And you see that in parenting and grandparenting and all these different things. And I've heard it from every single one of them as I've talked through it, is like they're just so stoked to have someone else as dedicated and as committed and as vivacious about it, which is really cool, because then it means that they're willing to help and talk and work it out and everything. But yeah, it's cool to see how excited they are.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun part of the whole event for us to connect with people, and I'm glad that it turned out that way. Go back to community for just a minute and speak to what it means to you going forward. I mean, when you the event took place, maybe speak to just how it ended, the community that was physically around you. I didn't really get a chance to see, right, what virtually happened. What was there messages that were sent, so just kind of speak to the finish line of community, both, in reality and virtual.
There's someone who rode with me throughout the day and at the end, and he has a YouTube video up. If you go to my YouTube channel and look on featured playlists, you can find it there. And because I finished the event and then stopped and everything, I usually at the end of rides, just like normal rides, everyone kind of like chats and says good ride and hangs out and everything for a little while, or like says their goodbyes. So he continued cycling. So you can see on his thing, everyone saying all the like, he did it, and like there was a little virtual celebration of everyone like, wow, that's amazing and everything. So yeah, there was certainly a virtual celebration, and the community. The community is huge. And listening back when you were talking to Nathan during one of the little mini podcast episodes or whatever, you were kind of blown away that like there's people who this is all they do, right? They don't really bike outside, and they race and they make money racing, and there's like a whole world of it and everything. So not only is it just community to real life, it can be its own thing, which is incredible all on its own. So the community is incredible, and I think it gives a lot of people stuff to go for. Like I've seen this with other people's experiences, but didn't expect it to ever really be this way for me, to have people reach out and say like, what you're doing like made me ride harder today. Like I've been surprised how many people have shot me a message and be like, I just did my longest ride that I've ever done, or I went harder than I ever have because I, watched your video or something like that.
That's rad.
And I'm like, that's sick. Yeah, that's
totally
awesome, because like that's part of like, especially being a counselor, I love to help people. That's why I went into that career. And so to know that what I'm doing not only is beneficial for me and not only cool on its own, that it's like pushing other people to push themselves, super validating.
Totally. I love that part of it. And it was, I have to admit, that morning, and I was exhausted, showing back up at, there's this countdown, to the finish line. And do you remember what happened in that last couple of moments when I was like, Matthew, I want to interview you? And you could just...
I went back and watched it. It kind of left my brain afterwards, but then I was watching the finishing stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Tom asked me how I was doing. And I was like, as nicely as I could, like, no, thank you. Like, well,
I was the annoying media guy. Like, picture, someone trying to shoot their final foul shots, to win Game 7, and the announcer walks over and says, "Hey, what's going on?" So yeah, that was pretty lame of me. But I have to admit, I was so excited.
You wanted to get it. You wanted
to capture it. I did, and I was picturing it. To be honest, I was picturing it with your parents, right? Your mom who's battling, your dad, your little boys walk in. They just gone to bed overnight. Dad's still writing. And I was just seeing it through this lens of like, your son and your dad is now a Guinness World Record. He's the best at this thing, Yeah. What was that for you?
Yeah. Let me move into that one in a second. Well, let's come back to the finish, actually. So part of the whole mental, like, you're doing this for 24 hours was that I didn't really think about like you're a world record holder until I think I vividly remember it being like 18 minutes left. For some reason, that number stuck in my mind. That it was at that point that I was like you did it. Like you broke all these things, and this is real. And there's something about the last bit of an event that it doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter like how hard you've pushed. You just get that second wind and you can finish. And you sometimes bank on that. I was certainly to like make it through a lot of this. And I was totally living that. Like the last hour was the most smooth, the most efficient, like the best that I had felt. And I had paced it to be that way, but you just never know. And so it was that moment that I was like, I don't, and I'm still processing it. I'm still like trying to make sense. Like you said, I've only been doing this for like 2 years and 9 months, 2 and 3/4, like less than 3 years. And like I hold a world record in it. Like that doesn't even compute in my brain still. And I don't think of myself that way. I don't think of myself as an elite cyclist, but I have been that. I could see it even in that moment. I kind of have been. Like it's not in my brain yet that like that's a reality. So certainly it hasn't fully registered in my brain that like you're the best that anyone's ever done at this. And like you smashed it too. Like not by a little bit, like you showed up and really stuck it. So that's still processing in my brain, but I do remember having a moment during the ride thinking like, wow, we did this. And what's interesting is that my brain does go to we, especially with Bailey. My brain automatically in that moment. In fact, in the last 30 minutes, someone on Zwift messaged me and said, what are you going to do immediately afterwards? And so many cycling people are foodies and other things. So they're thinking of the food, especially knowing me that I'm the big food guy. Like, what food are you going to smash in your face is essentially what I think they wanted to know. But I was like, I'm going to hug and kiss Bailey. Like, she went to town on this. She went just went so hard at it for it.
She was incredible. I mean, the night before I went to get burgers, for my son and I, just trying to, do our own thing to get some food. And I get a text from Bailey saying, hey, can you go pick up a pizza and I'm thinking like, he's going to eat a pizza right now. and it was no, because I want him to have a pizza when he's done,
Yeah.
Yeah. Bailey, you're an amazing
rock star.
Yeah. Total rock star.
Super epic. Going back to your interview moment, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
I think that had to be in the last 10 minutes. It had to be probably in the last 5 minutes.
It was like 4 minutes left.
Yeah, it wasn't very long because there was a point where I had calculated out that 650 wasn't on the table anymore with the speeds that we were doing. And so I kind of I let go of that and didn't think about it, but I knew that at the time of day that we were finishing that I had these really fast people that were going to be on. So my whole goal the whole day was to have enough left in the tank to push it with them, to ramp back up the pace, to let them wrap back up the pace, and for me to hang on, which meant that I was going to have to work harder than I did the whole day. So I was doing this 200. I think my average actually was 272 until the last hour. I added on an extra watt because the last 12 minutes or 10 minutes was 300 plus watts. And so I bumped up and was following this group. And there's this section on Tempest Fluid on there that it actually times you, and there's a leaderboard and everything, and it tells you what your fastest times were. I think our fastest time during the day was like 920 something is like that at those speeds. Well, we went on that segment like 901 that time. So we took off several seconds and we're going the fastest that we went. And then we turned around and went even harder to finish because we finished like halfway through that next straight or whatever. And so I think you asked me when I was halfway through that, I was doing 300 or 320 or something like that. And then we got into the last 2 or 3 minutes. And once again, I wasn't cognizant to notice how close 650 was. At that point, it was just let them go to town and I'll stick as hard as I can with them. And so I'm texting them, telling them essentially do your worst. Let's bring this home as hard as we can. And so if you watch, I was at 410 for the last 3 minutes. And even in this moment, I'm like, how did that even come out of my body? I have no idea how I had the energy for that. And I was extremely exhausted after the fact, but in the moment it was just do what you can, do everything you can. In fact, I remember someone with like a minute left to go that jokingly said like 550 for a minute, do 550 for a minute. And I don't know if, I think they were in front of me, so I don't even think they knew that I was doing 400, because it didn't look like I was doing like if you look at the video.
Oh, no.
I did a power test too on Saturday. And if you watch the video of me, in fact, I have a video of the warm-up lap and a video of the go lap, and you couldn't pick which one it is. Like there's like, that's, I say food and smoothness are my superpowers. Like I can do the same amount of watts looking the exact same, which is so efficient. So yeah, I was going to town and they said 550, and I knew that if I stood up, I could probably do it. But this is probably part of the sickness now that I think about it. I was committed to staying down in aero position, even the last seconds, which would have mattered nothing.
Totally.
It would have taken nothing. Like it would have been peanuts away.
Yeah.
And also like 550 at that point would have mattered nothing too. But yeah, that's we somehow have to encapsulate what that is. Like pull that out.
Dude, it's unreal.
Why at that point?
Yeah. Well, obsessiveness. That's why.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that part of all of this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like controlled, healthy, directed obsessiveness. Like I saw this Instagram reel a couple days ago that was something to the effect of, how come you're so good at cycling or ultra cycling or something? And the person said, well, it's a healthy mix of ADHD and autism. And
amen.
Yeah, my comment back was like, why you got to call us out like that?
Yeah, totally. Why are you shaming us like that?
Yeah, but that's the story of my life, and my parents captured it really well. If you want to get a little glimpse into my mind, I think go and listen to your interview with them.
Yeah.
I think they pulled out a lot of that inside of me, that there's just this piece of me that doesn't let go of things, that attaches to it and devours it and thinks about it and mulls on it. And if I don't direct that, it's going to go somewhere. It's not really a choice of mine. Like it's who I am.
Yeah.
And so I've found in my life, either I pick where to put that or it goes somewhere. And so I'm now picking, I picked to do it in graduate school. I've picked to do it to learn to be a father and a good husband. And in those moments where, you know, I think like speaking, the marriage therapist part of me is like that first few years of marriage, you have to do that. You have to like be devoted to the craft of being a good spouse. And so there's been these life events that have meant a lot to me, that I've sold myself into doing them and being obsessive about them. And it just so happens that at this point in life, I don't, like, those things ran out. Not that I'm not doing them anymore, but the crunch time was over.
Yeah.
And so that energy had to go somewhere. And so it went into cycling, and this perfect storm happened of physical ability and eating and obsessiveness that just like all of a sudden we're here breaking world records. Like it's bizarre, but that's the recipe. And you can't create that. Like some of it's just serendipitous.
Totally. It is. I mean, and watching it that day, I have to admit, I'm like, yeah, this is the storm.
Yeah.
That just, that worked. Fascinating. What do you take away? What do you take away from the event, the experience, the accomplishment, and where do you go? What are you sinking those obsessive chops into now?
I have the right people. I have the right tribe, and I want to honor them and keep feeding them like they feed me. That was a huge takeaway, is that this was, like we've said a bunch of times, this was a gargantuan task, and it wasn't accomplishable without those people. From certainly Bailey, like we talked about, certainly you guys, but then I've got some good companies and sponsors that I'm working with that are also in the trenches with me in their own ways and doing really cool things. So honoring those people and doing that. Other takeaways. This was the first ultra event, and I've only done 3 or 4 now, but this was the first time that immediately after the event, I wasn't ready to quit. Like after Sebring and after Hoodoo, there was like a partial serious part of me that's like, I'm done cycling forever. Like I just
interesting.
Like I'm checked out.
Yeah.
but I didn't have that this time. I wasn't energized in any way except for the fact that I was like, I'll do this again. Where literally those other times I've thought I won't do this again. And to speak to that, I've always committed to recovering what I need to afterwards. I haven't had a strict recovery program, but I have said, if you need to not get on the bike for a week, don't get on the bike for a week. And you fill it out and you figure it out. I've always got on the bike a day or two afterwards. 2 or 3 days afterwards, I should say. It's always confusing with the 24 hours. There's always this jet lag of like, what day is it afterwards? But I'm always back on the bike. And this time, especially like later that week, I was on a ride pushing normal watts, pushing normal power, doing normal things. Heart rate was elevated, body was really sore. And so I committed to 10 easy days after that. And I really lived that and did that well. But that was a strange takeaway, is like, I'm still ready to go. There's more to do. And I've done all of this very specifically with that. Like, I've set up an event basically every 2 months over this year. And I'm basically going through this cycle over and over again of performing, recovering, building, and just doing it over and over again. So the next one is Race Across the West on June 10th. And it starts with Race Across America in Oceanside, but it does like the first third of it, a little bit less than a third. You go to Durango, Colorado. So it'll be hot, desert, a lot of climbing, cold as well, because we start at 0. We go up to like 4,500 feet. We go below 0 because you go through that part of California where we're going to be 115 degrees, which I'm still wrapping my brain around. So obsessiveness, there's a part of me that's like, how do I heat adapt? That's what's on my mind this week, is I gotta get better at heat. And then we go up to 8,000 feet a few times and end in Durango, which is up there. So that's going to be a wild one.
It's going to be a swing of temps.
Yeah, we're going to have cars chucked full of everything you can imagine for it. So.
Crazy. Go back, because you said something a couple minutes ago and I'm like, that's interesting. What was it about Sebring and these other events, maybe the other events that were outdoor or singular? You and Bailey or just, a small support crew versus a community. Mm-hmm. Was that a difference, having people around you? There was a community, for lack of a better term, there was this positive peer pressure, going on, this kind of fine balance of, well, there's people around me and there's expectations, there's pressure, but that also was maybe part of the magic sauce of like pushing and getting to the finish line and not feeling like that I'm never doing that again, or I want to quit doing this sport.
Yeah, I don't connect that as much in that way. What I do pull out of what you were saying was I still feel that connection, like at Sebring, even though I spent most of the 24 hours on my own, in my own headspace. I can't even remember how, like it was 156 laps or something like that at this 3-mile course, 3.5-mile course. So I saw Bailey and my other support and other people pretty regularly, but most of it's in my own head. But I still pulled a lot from that. Like, you have that tribe of people and you have these friends and you told people you're going to go and do this thing and you don't want to let them down and everything. So that was like fairly similar in the fact that it was alive in my head, but this was in person. The thing that I think was actually more detrimental this time was like the pressure was there in my face. Like there at Sebring, I could just let it all slip away and I'm just like a dude on my bike, and nothing else matters. But there it's like there's banners and there's people and I'm looking at this live stream and there's, I'm like around people all the time, which I think actually Zwift has a lot going for it in terms of accountability and you can't just slip away and disappear. And especially like nowadays you can coffee or teleport or something like that. So even if you do fall off the group, everyone else is like, come back up here. Like, let's go. Like, let's get you back on it. So I think that a lot of that exists inside of me. I was going to pull a little bit differently from, the angle of just like the amount of pressure that it created, just that it was just heavy. I think that a lot of that was getting away from that and just focusing on what I was doing.
Yeah. Amazing, man.
I want to pull one more thing out. You were asking about like kind of the end and the aftermath. And even though at this time I wasn't like as gutted in the fact of like, I'm done, check me out.
Yeah.
Like after Sebring, someone was asking me how I felt or what was next or what was I doing next. And it was just like in the first few minutes and I was like, I'm retired. Like I'm like, that was my cycling career.
Yeah,
like
totally.
I'm out of here.
I've done it.
Yeah. But this time as I lost my thought now. As I was doing this event, there's so many other things to do and to get to. And so I've had a lot on my mind of where to go. Oh, I was going to talk about recovery. I was like trying to piece it together. Sorry.
It's okay.
So I was just talking with your wife about this before we started the podcast. I knew your wife before I knew you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so she was asking me about the event and everything. And I was explaining to her that the short-term recovery after the event is really an event all on its own. Everyone talks about in pretty much every racing format that like the real work is before the event even happens. And then the event itself is just going out and doing it. I think this is true of like a lot of sporting events. It's just not as crucial as in an ultra event, that the hours afterwards are, I mean, I don't know. It'd be so interesting to have someone break down physiologically what's happening, because it is a crap storm. Like it hurts more than the event itself by far. Not in a muscular way that sets in, a few hours, like a couple days later when everything's super sore and tired. But essentially the best that I can gather of it is that it's a mixture of like overcoming the sleep deprivation and getting back on nutrition, going through like all these like weird sugar crashes and energy ups and downs and everything. The best way that I've been able to piece it together the last couple times is essentially like get off, eat as much as I possibly can, which I can normally eat quite a bit, but afterwards I can't eat that much. So I can stomach a good meal. I mean, for anyone else, it'd be a day's worth of eating. It's still like 2,000 or 3,000 calories. I ate half a pizza and like 3 or 4 ice cream bars afterwards. So it's a good meal, but for being 7,000 calories down, plus I haven't ate for Sunday yet, it's not that much. Like
No.
I'm still in the hole quite a bit, but I can't eat anymore. And especially like with every bite, the tiredness sets in. Like I can feel it. Like as I'm getting done with a slice of pizza, I'm like more tired all of a sudden. And I think it's this battle inside your body of what needs more right this second, food or sleep, because you're so sleep deprived and you're so low on nutrition. So I stomach all this food and then I sleep. And I really wish I could just like fall asleep for 10 hours. But remember, I'm still like 7,000 calories low. So I wake up 2 hours later, like starving. And this has been the pattern every single time.
And are you jacked on caffeine? I mean, there's something going on, right?
That's true. But I fall asleep so quick. But the sleep probably isn't that restful.
Heck no.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure Whoop is like, you're screwed. Whatever Whoop's telling you. But I mean, I actually get that.
Yeah.
This like cellular fatigue, and yet your body still has so much. It's messed up.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's all jacked. It doesn't know. Like, are we gonna die? Mm-hmm. Are we like?
No, it really is traumatic. And this actually, I was debating like how vulnerable to be about this with everyone, because, well, people react to things however they want to.
Yeah.
But I've been pretty open about everything, and I like that, and people appreciate it. So people can say and do whatever they want to. Like people tell me I train wrong all the time and all these things, right? And I'm like, well, tell me now, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
But anyway, so it's 2 hours sleep, wake up and eat. And so I did that this time, and I was feeling like as okay as you can in that situation. I went back to sleep, and like an hour and a half or 2 hours in, I woke up and I felt terrible. Like probably one of the worst feelings that I've had like in my whole life. And I'm so tired and low on nutrition that I really probably should have just got on the fact that it was probably like a really bad sugar crash, like a really bad nutritional, because as soon as I ate food, like 30 minutes later, I was fine. but for probably 10 or 15 minutes, I'm like trying to go back to sleep and I can't. And so then I'm like getting up and then I start to notice that like I'm kind of like a little bit dizzy, like not terrible, but I'm like a little bit hazy and everything's a little bit fuzzy. And like I said, I should have noticed it was just a huge sugar crash. But yeah, at that point, I was like, it's the first time after an event like this that I'm like, I maybe should go get checked out. And I'm not like waking Bailey up to say that I should do that, but I'm close to it. And I'm like, I don't think I may have overdone it, which is a stupid thing to say. I obviously overdid it in so many ways.
This is that moment in time where it's like, okay, now I get to reap the fruits of that labor.
Yep.
And so when your buddy, tells you, hey, this isn't good for you, this is what he's talking about,
exactly,
right?
Yeah,
these are those things where it's like, yeah, I just took myself to Guantanamo on purpose. I mean,
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So luckily I got the wherewithal to say I probably need to go to eat some food. And so, all right, I was like, I'll try that before I go to the hospital, I think was actually the thought. It's all really fuzzy, right? So I went and ate and then it balanced back out. But it was the same thing once again. I ate as much as I could, which still wasn't enough. It's crazy to like 3 separate meals, eat as much as you possibly can, and to know I still haven't ate enough for the day. Not to mention that I already ate 19,000 calories on the bike. Like, how is this even a thing? Like
it's wild.
This isn't even real. So then I went to sleep for another 2 hours, woke up, ate one more time, and then finally at that point, so we have 6 hours of sleep, 4 big meals later, and I'm through what I call now the short-term recovery, which is like 6 through 10 hours of just, I'll call it hell. I'll just be straight up. It's not great. It's not good. It's way worse than the event itself, especially because the event itself, like, there's a reward for that. And this is part of the work for that reward, but the reward's already done. like you're just
totally,
there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's just awful.
That's just stay alive.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah. And then it goes to long-term recovery, which is actually relatively enjoyable. It's just you're tired and sore still, but it's not near as bad. So.
Yeah. What else? Any other takeaways?
Oh, there's just so many.
There's endless.
It's endless for sure, but big ones.
Is there anything that you learned about yourself in it? You've trained, you had race IQ, so to speak. So you knew that the capabilities were there. Yeah. But was there any moment that you surprised yourself?
For sure. Yeah, great question. So the week before, so this is the sickness and the obsessiveness is coming out again. The week before the event actually happened, we met with my crew for the first time for Race Across the West. So we're like crunch time for this event, already eyes on the next target, right? Like that's the only way you do these things. You can't let up.
Got to plan ahead.
Yeah. And so I'm meeting with them and we're talking through and they're asking like, how do we be of help to you? Like, let us know about you. And at Sebring, this thing happened where Bailey asked me how I was doing, and it sent me into a tailspin of 10 minutes thinking I'm not okay. Like I told her I'm doing okay, but and I know that I'm not on some level doing okay. But I don't let myself think about it. But her asking brings it to the surface, and all of a sudden, the next 10 minutes, I'm just like in this dungeon of you're not okay, you're not okay, you're not. It's just like a screaming thought. And so I had to claw my way out of that tunnel. And I've talked through this a little bit before that we had an exchange, her and I, of like, don't ask me if I'm okay. Like, just tell me I'm doing great, even if I look like I'm dying or whatever. Yeah. Like, that's just the thing. So I'm telling my crew this story and telling them like that's something that like don't ask me, just like cheer me on. If something's really wrong, I will let you know. Or Bailey knows me well enough that she'll be on top of it to know that something's really not okay, and we'll handle that. But I don't do well with that, and I need my crew to just like cheer me on and not ask that. Well, public event, people that are out of my control. What's the number one question that you ask someone when you walk up?
Yeah, totally. How you doing?
Yeah, how are you doing? Like it's like colloquial, but also especially in this, like everyone's so interested. Like you've been on this bike for 10 hours.
Yeah.
How are you?
Genuinely.
It's probably one of the genuine times that people actually say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And so I quickly realized early in the day, I'm going to have to get over this. Like this is something I've learned this about myself previously, and as a study of human nature, love this idea that like we are so adaptive, and times that we don't adapt are generally because we don't allow ourselves to, or don't make ourselves, or give ourselves the room to adapt. So in that moment when I told myself that I can't hear that, I closed the door to adaptation and told myself that this is a rule of my life. I can't take it if someone asks how I'm doing during an event when I'm not doing good. But in that moment of realizing you're going to get asked this 1,000 times today without exaggeration, I had to say, let's crack open that door and get over this. Like this is the nut that we have to crack currently. Otherwise, you're just going to tailspin the whole day. So forced adaptation, and that's just fascinating to me that like we as humans can overcome something that seems overcomable. Like literally a week before that in the meeting, I was talking about like that will tailspin me out of control. And here I am at a huge event facing it in, like looking at it directly in the eye. And I have the choice to succumb, but the choice is we're going to find a way through this.
Wow. I say wow because as I go back and now think through several of the interviews, whether we recorded them or not, or I was visiting with people, one of the terms that kept coming out of especially your quote tribe was control the controllables. And what's interesting about that is you controlled most of the controllables, and then the morning of you recognized real time, fluidly, this is one I can't control.
Yeah.
So was there a time throughout the day though where someone, it could have been me, I'm sure I asked you a couple times, hey, you're like, I've ridden a long time, you know, I know what it's like this, I'm picturing myself with that many people watching me real time in P2P or Lodaja, which is 8 to 10 hours max.
Right.
Like your day's just getting started at that point.
Yep.
How was that as the fatigue came in later? Was it just kind of like you smiled and you kind of just let it roll off the back?
Yeah. So I detailed like I did a big write up of this, and I detailed what some of those thoughts were because I wanted to capture it. But eventually you do it enough that it just becomes part of your process. But in the moment, the thoughts were something along the lines of they care about you, they're interested. Like it's a reframe, right? Of the output that they're giving is asking how you're doing, and I can input that as them asking how I'm doing. But instead, I'm gonna translate that to they're interested, or they care about you, or they want to be helpful too. Like so many people ask that because if you're not doing okay, they want to like stand up and cheer you on and like help you out or something. Like they're not there to hurt you. That was one of them. They're not here to bring you down.
Yeah, I'm assume positive intent with the comment or the question.
Which is all of this, like once again, my therapist part of me is like, all of this is so applicable to real life
100%.
situations. You got to be able to reframe that stuff. And so, like I said, if it's in your control, if it's your own crew, I can ask that of them. But in the moment, you have to adapt to that. And I think we're faced with that challenge all the time. Is you control it, but then all of a sudden something knocks it out of your control. Do you sit there and cry about it and crumble?
Yeah.
Or do you stand up and say, how do we get past this? What is the tool either that I know or that I have to create in this moment to get past it?
I love it. You took the records, you finished the records, you knocked them down, huge kudos. But was there satisfaction for Lefty? Like, are you satisfied?
This was the biggest, this Sebring were the biggest moments of like actually living in something for so long. Like I feel like so often what I mean by that is so often you accomplish something and the satisfaction is relatively short. Like even things that are pretty big, like you graduate from school, we build these things around it to create more living in it, these parties and this stuff like that to like kind of keep it alive. And I think it's cultural, but I think it's also this like we want to sit there, we want to like, and really it's I've had a problem with graduations and stuff like that because it feels fake to me. Like it doesn't.
Me too.
It doesn't feel. The moment that I did it, it was done, and now it's like life continues on. It's like the analogy that I always hear about is you don't climb to the top of the mountain and then set up camp there. You climb to the top of the mountain and you high five and then you go back down and you're on to the next journey. And so that's what like these moments are to me, but we try and keep them alive. So, but these ones were different where I actually lived in them for a while. It actually was super satisfying and gratifying. And I think that obviously it helps. And it'd be interesting to hear more people who have done similar things like break world records and whatnot, to hear if they too feel that these things are that way just because of the size of them. Like I don't know if that's what it is, or there's something about these events that just is so encapsulating for a while. Like I live in it for a few days, where pretty much everything else in my life, it's been like momentary, very brief.
It's cool to hear you just process it and how you think about it. You know, what you're feeling about what this finish line, you know, feels like to you, and where you take it going forward. Do you chalk this up as one of those moments where you think, yeah, I'll draw from this, you know, at Race Across the West, eventually Ram, which we won't talk about today. That'll be another podcast. But yeah, I mean, is this, you know, are these deposits in the Pain Cave Bank that
For sure.
you just know you will draw from?
Yeah, they just keep feeding each other. And I think one of the main reasons that you train for something big is so that when you're in the middle of it, you can pull from that training day and say, I can do this. You're adding to that supply of firepower. And certainly I think these big events are the same way. Like Hoodoo is one that I will probably, I don't know, maybe life gets crazier or there's crazier events, but that was so much battling that day that I still go back to that one all the time. Like nothing has been as hard as that race was in so many ways that I pull from it. But these indoor rides are really cool to pull from in a very physical, mechanical way, because this is my opinion, but I think a pretty valid one. There's like nothing as physically demanding as being on that trainer for 24 hours grinding away. So to have that in my arsenal of like your body can do it, like if you think your body or your strength or the watts or your heart is the problem, nuh-uh. Like you did way harder than this inside on an indoor bike. Like that's not the problem.
On an indoor bike in that position.
Yeah.
Like I'm still like trying to like, what's the equivalent of that? Like, I don't know, a baby in the womb before it's born. Like you're literally like crowd. I mean, that's
a torture test.
It was remarkable. I'll just say that. I mean, I have to give you full props, respect, kudos, you know, to use the Strava term. Just, it was incredible.
Which, speaking of supporters, a lot of that goes to the tribe of people that I'm pulling from, learning from, growing from. But Peak State Fit, Pat Casey there, earlier this year when I decided to do this thing for real and really get into Ultra TT and everything, I was like, I got to go and find someone who's going to help me out. And he's been dynamite to get that sorted out. In fact, the irony of the day was that I was actually feeling a lot better than I thought I would be feeling. There's always a part of me that's ready to go to complete war, that it's just going to be really hard the whole time, because that can happen. But this time I felt really good for 15, 16, 17 hours, really right up until about 18 hours. And I was chatting with people pretty much the whole day. In fact, I feel kind of sad because when Jason and Kevin came on at the end, I was not in a place to chat as much and everything. I still did interact a little bit, but those are cool guys and I want to hang out with them.
They couldn't talk anyway, bro. They were puffed out. Trust me.
It's true.
And I love those guys. But when I walked in and they both looked at me and gave me eyes like, what is going on here? Pretty funny, man.
Yeah. So Pat came in.
So good.
We talked for a while. So yeah, good stuff. Really good.
That's so awesome. Well, next, yeah. What's next? I mean, we'll hear about it. We'll do, you know, we'll do a Lefty later in the year, you know, catch up. But
yeah,
congratulations to Lefty, Bailey. Mm-hmm. You know, your parents, your family, everybody who was involved. What a cool event, and I can't wait to see those plaques Where do the plaques go? Do they go above the fireplace?
You know,
like where does the big plaques get?
You know what's interesting? So the hoodoo one went up on display where I could see it pretty quick. The Sebring one's still on a box on my dresser. Like I haven't seen the light of the day since. So
That says so much about you.
yeah, some of these things, hoodoo meant a lot. I mean, it was the first race. It was a lot of battles. It really proved that I could do these things. And so, like I said, it'll live with me for a while, and it's probably like the momentum, the example, or the signifying thing. So that one's up, and it will probably be up. The rest of these, I mean, I don't plan on making a trophy room anytime soon. I got stuff to do. Like
I got stuff to do.
yeah.
Well, we'll be along for the journey, following along, cheering you along.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's been really cool. Before we end out, because you're wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
Where can donations be made?
Yeah, I don't know if we're still open on that campaign. I think it is, and maybe not for shirts. That timeline might have passed, but there is a GoFundMe set up to donate to my mom and helping her with the cost of making it through something like this, and to support that. So, or there's also a link set up to donate to the National Breast Cancer Foundation that we did on the event, so you can donate to either of those. And I'm super grateful for the donations that have gone out. It's been huge for us and my family. My family isn't in dire straits with it, but it's always stressful when it comes to the finances of it. And it came to the point where some of it was going to have to be financed or paid with over time or something. So the amount that's been donated allows her to pay for all the treatment so far and all the treatment that's going to happen over this summer, which is incredible. And she's been extremely grateful. And we're blown away that there was that much support.
Awesome. Absolutely cool. BrainStoke's fourth S is serve. So you want to serve a little bit, boost that oxytocin in the brain, make a donation. You've had your daily dose.